Welcome back to another episode of the Draw Control Podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by senior on the Colgate women's lacrosse team, Lucy Licata. In her career, Lucy has played in 46 games so far, where she has scored 55 goals, gotten 33 ground balls, has 15 caused turnovers, and 95 draw controls. This allowed Lucy to make the All-Patriot League Second Team as a junior. Last year, her 86 draw controls were a second most all time in a season in program history, and she led the team in goals last season as well. And we're super excited to have her on the podcast today. So, welcome to the Draw Control Podcast, Lucy, and how is everything going?
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Everything's great. Yeah, excited to be on.
Well, we're excited to have you on as well. And obviously, fall ball has been going on for like a month or so by now. So, how has fall ball been going for yourself and for your team so far this semester?
Yeah, fall ball's been great. We had our first play day this past weekend, which went awesome, and we're super excited with how everything's going so far and welcoming in the freshmen and kind of building on the team chemistry we've had in the past and looking forward to the spring. So yeah, we're super pumped.
And obviously, you're going to be a senior this year. So, what type of leadership are you trying to bring to the team? Would you consider yourself a vocal leader or a lead by example type of player?
Yeah, I think my senior class is a super strong class as far as leadership goes. I think for me specifically, in the past, I've been more lead by example, just being an underclassman and all. But I think as I've grown older within the program, I've become more vocal and kind of stepped into that role. So I think now I guess I'm a fair mix of lead by example and vocality, but I think kind of adapting to what our team needs at the time is what I'm trying to do as well.
Yeah, how have the new players looked so far from your perspective?
They've looked awesome and they're like joining right in as far as team chemistry goes on and off the field. So we're super excited to have them.
Now, what are some things that you've been working on this summer and in the fall to get ready for next season?
Yeah, I think individually over the summer, I was focusing a lot on the offensive side of the ball, whether it was, shooting, dodging, cutting. And so that was kind of my focus over the summer. I think as we've gotten back to school, the focus has definitely shifted to more team offense and defense and, kind of all the steps within the game. So it's been fun getting back and kind of shifting from more of an individually focused summer to a team focused fall.
Yeah, and speaking of summer, how was your summer overall? Did you do anything interesting, whether it was lacrosse related or not?
Yeah, I got to live in New York City this summer with a teammate, and I interned for a marketing role for a health and wellness company, which was all very, very new coming from a small town in New Hampshire. So, it gave me definitely a little bit of a taste for life after college, which is both so exciting and a little bit scary. But yeah, I had a great summer.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. Any fun things you did in New York, like on a consistent basis? Like, I feel like if I lived there, I would be like trying to go to like the NHL store every week just because that looks like a fun place to go and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that was the first time I had ever been there for like a long duration. I'd been there for like weekends when I was growing up, but I think we were just trying to really explore every chance we could. It was obviously busy because my teammate and I both had a job, but going to the 9/11 memorial and like all the like fun food spots and just kind of trying to explore when we can.
Yeah, you're only a college student once, so you got to take advantage of that free time, especially in a place like
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
Well, let's transition now and talk about the beginning of your lacrosse career and sort of work all the way up to where you are today. So you're from Hopkinton, New Hampshire. Talk about growing up there and how did you start playing lacrosse?
Yeah, so I grew up in Hopkinton and super small town in New Hampshire. I think New Hampshire as a whole doesn't have the biggest lacrosse atmosphere, although it's growing, but the communities are really strong within it. So I grew up in one of those communities and my dad played lacrosse in college, so I was kind of fostered that love for the sport at a young age. I think I was in fourth grade when I picked up a stick, and so I was lucky enough to have him coach me throughout kind of my middle school and elementary school career up until high school and so that definitely helped me kind of figure out that this was something I wanted to do. But yeah, growing up in Hopkinton was super cool. Just a really strong community around lacrosse that I've still leaned on ever since, leaving and being in college.
Yeah, it seems like the New Hampshire lacrosse scene has grown a lot, like you mentioned. Obviously, I had the
Mhm.
chance to interview Elle Stevenson, who plays for BU. She's from New Hampshire, and then Riley Bouvier from Stanford also is from New Hampshire as well. So it seems like you're starting to see more D1 players being from that state.
Definitely. I think Tomahawks is a huge thing to do with that as well. I know Riley from that club, and so I think
Hmm.
they've been growing great players as well.
Now, growing up, who were your favorite lacrosse players and teams that you like to watch?
So I grew up like right around the BC like dynasty kind of, and so I remember going to Under Armour tournaments where they would like strategically place it at the spot of the tournament. And so I'd like watch every single year that I went back, BC was in it, and like watching, Sam Puzo, Kenzie Kent, Dempsey Arsenal, all those girls. It was super cool to watch them, from their freshman year to senior year and just what they did with that program and where it is now.
Now, before college, you played for your high school at the Derryfield School. Talk about your high school lacrosse days, what you took away from it, and what's like your favorite high school lacrosse memory when you look back on it now.
Yeah, I think in high school I went to a super small private high school, and so there's a sports requirement and people came for different reasons, whether it was athletic or academic. And so on the lacrosse team, you had various levels of commitment, and that kind of allowed me, being one of the most committed players, to step into a leadership role and kind of like hone those skills that I now lean on in college. And I think I learned a lot in high school and on and off the field. But my favorite memory was by far my senior year. We won our championship game, and it was a little bit of victory, a sweet victory, because my sophomore year we lost by 1 goal to the Hopkinton, which is the school I transferred out of. So a little bit of revenge there my senior year playing them again, beating them by the same score they beat us. So it was a little bit full circle, a great note to end, my high school career on and going into college.
Yeah, for sure. Not many people get to end off their high school career on a winning a trophy, so that's pretty cool that you got to sort of have that storybook ending.
Mhm, for sure.
Now, you also played club lacrosse for the New Hampshire Tomahawks club lacrosse program, like you mentioned before. How did your experience there help prepare you for college lacrosse? Obviously, playing with someone like Riley Bouvier must really help you prepare because you're going up against other commits. So it makes that transition, I assume, much easier once you get to college.
Exactly. And like we kind of talked about, the scene in New Hampshire, it's definitely growing, but it's you need to go to Maryland and Florida and like all those places that the Tomahawks allowed us to travel and play these super competitive teams. And so that was definitely a super competitive atmosphere. And we were able to travel and play the best kids in the country. And that just and a part of that was being able to be coached by all these different people, whether it was coaches in the area with a ton of experience or recent college graduates with a lot of knowledge. I mean, there was just a lot of informative years within the Tomahawks that made me the player I am.
Now, I also saw that you did ski racing back in high school. I know you said there was a sports requirement, so I'm assuming that's why you decided to do it. But what was it like doing that? Because that seemed really interesting to me. And is that a sport you've been sort of participating in a long time? Because I also read that your mom was a professional alpine ski racer, so I assume she helped you out with that a little bit.
Yeah, so I definitely come from a ski family. I was born in Vermont before moving to New Hampshire, and my dad works in the ski industry. Like you said, my mom was a professional ski racer. And so skiing was always such a big part of my life. And I have a twin sister, and so when we were both 10, she decided to take up ski racing, which is where I kind of diverted to snowboarding. So came back around senior year of high school where I kind of joined the ski team for fun, which didn't I played soccer as well, so it didn't entirely lead into the sports requirement, but it was definitely more for fun than it was for competition. But yeah, I love being on snow, and although ski racing isn't a big part of my life, skiing and snowboarding is. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. I've never skied before, which is kind of surprising. So
yeah,
I feel like I gotta do it at some point, but I'm a little bit nervous. I
definitely.
would probably snowboard before I ski. I feel like that looks more fun.
Yeah, I think snowboarding is easier to pick up for sure. They're both pretty challenging, but they're so fun.
Now, talk a little bit about your recruiting process with Colgate and what made you want to go there versus other schools you might have looked at.
Yeah, I think the main things that I was focused on when I was getting recruited were academics and athletics, obviously, but also school size and where it is located. And so I think locationally, I really wanted to go to a school that was somewhat close to home, not necessarily a flight, but it also didn't have to be in New Hampshire. I just wanted somewhere accessible for, my parents traveling to games and stuff, and if I ever needed to go home. And so that Colgate kind of checked the box there. And as far as school size, coming from such a small high school, I didn't want to jump to a big college. So this was kind of the sweet spot I was hoping for. And most importantly was academics and athletics. I think Colgate blends the two so well. And academically, it's super rigorous, which is something I wanted. And athletically, we're in a super competitive conference where lacrosse is super high level. So I think the choice was made super easy by kind of checking every box that I had going into the recruiting process. But yeah, I'm happy with my choice for sure.
Now, what was like the biggest adjustment you had to make to college lacrosse once you joined the team as a freshman?
Yeah, I think on the field the pace of play is just so much faster. And obviously there's all the little rule changes from high school to college, whether it's the shot clock or, defenders running through the crease. But the pace of play is the biggest difference I noticed right when I got on the field for the first day. I think off the field the time commitment is an adjustment as well. Like in high school you have everything kind of carved out for you, whether it's your classes or your homework or your like lacrosse or your athletics after school. And so having it all on your own time and being in charge of how you do in both aspects is an adjustment as well.
Yeah, how have you learned to balance both academics and lacrosse at such a high level?
hmm I think I'm someone who is very organized, sometimes to a fault, and so I think I rely heavily on that and having a calendar and having all the things that help me lay out how I need to approach day by day, week by week to be as successful as I can be in all these different areas of college life. But I think yeah, just making sure that I'm staying on top of it is the biggest way that I can make sure that I'm covering all my bases.
Now, you obviously get to play in the Patriot League, which, in my opinion, is one of the more underrated conferences in women's lacrosse, just because you have teams like Loyola, Navy, Army, Holy Cross, and Boston University, along with yourself. So, what's it like getting the chance to play in that conference and just the competition you face each game? Because I feel like the Patriot League deserves more love.
I agree. I completely agree. And I think you kind of touched on it, but obviously like there's top 10 teams like Loyola, but I think there any game can go any way on any day, which is something super special and something that not a lot of leagues can say. I mean, the competition is so tight and everyone, you never know how the game's going to go. So it really is who shows up on what day, which is super exciting to go into, conference play with because yeah, it's unpredictable, which is so fun.
Now, what has been the biggest improvement you've made to your game since your freshman year?
I think so I when I graduated high school, I kind of never really expected to take a draw again. I kind of stepped in that role as needed in high school and kind of thought I was going to leave it there, but as our draw taker neared graduation, I kind of had to start thinking about it a little bit. And so I went from not really expecting to kind of having to morph a draw game of my own for the team. So I think that I put a lot of time into that for thinking about how we could be most successful, whether it's myself or someone else taking the draw and how we want to play the circle game. I think that's where a lot of my time and effort has gone into thinking about.
Yeah. And obviously, like I mentioned in the intro, your draw control stat from last year is second most in program history. So how do you work on that part of your game? I don't want you to reveal all your secrets in the circle, but if there's any sort of insight you can share on how you work on that part of the game, that would be definitely I would definitely love to hear that. And I know the audience would as well.
Yeah, I think just reps. I mean, practice makes perfect, and I think just repping out like all the kind of just trying to master one draw and then trying to master a second and then a third. I think that's kind of the route that I went, and just making sure that you have a grasp on all the options when you step up to the draw circle, and just making sure that you're consistent and you kind of understand the ins and outs because it is a lot of mental as well as physical strategy. It's a lot of kind of thinking about the other team and where your team is. So kind of just being prepped for any circumstance and just taking reps and reps and reps of draws is how I've kind of grown my game.
Now, what's been your favorite memory with Colgate so far?
I think so. Last year we had a tight game against Lehigh on senior night and ended up winning in the last couple seconds. And I mean, that was such a fun win, especially going into conference play, just on a high note. But I also think, giving that back to the seniors who were playing their last home game and we got to, help them get a win. I think that was super rewarding and also so exciting heading into the rest of the season.
Now, what are your team's goals and expectations for the upcoming season? I assume you guys have talked about that a little bit in fall ball. So, anything that you want to see your team accomplish for next year, or are you sort of just taking it day by day?
I mean, I think we have big goals as well as taking it day by day, but I think being one of the top teams in the Patriot League is an easy goal that we want to really hone in on throughout the fall in order to get there in the spring. I think, like I said, it's such a competitive league, and I think being one of the best teams in it is one of our top goals for sure.
And is there anything you want to see yourself individually accomplish for the upcoming season?
I mean, I think I want to be the best teammate and player for the team that I can be. I think whether that's like on the draw, helping younger kids, or in attack and kind of all over the field, just being the best player I can for the team. I think a specific goal, I think just jumping off of last year would be to break the draw control record, but more than that is just kind of helping our team have the most successful season that we can.
All right, so let's move on to a segment I like to call the non-lacrosse segment, where I ask you some non-lacrosse questions to get to know you a little bit more off the field. And I'll answer some of these as well so we can make it a fun conversation. So, the first question I have for you is if there was a movie made about your life, who would you want to play yourself?
I think one of my favorite actresses is Mila Kunis, and she's in a lot of my favorite movies, and she also has brown hair, so that's an option that I was thinking about.
That's a good one. That's a good one. I would say for myself, I feel like Matt McConaughey would be super
Mm,
cool just because
yeah,
he seems like a very chill, nice guy.
definitely.
Because I can't really think of any celebrity that looks like me, so I would probably just pick the coolest person.
Yeah,
Pick a person I think would be the coolest to play me, so that's who I would go with.
definitely.
Now, what was your favorite TV show growing up?
Definitely Good Luck Charlie. I loved it, and I think my sister and I forced our parents to watch it every once in a while, and it was our favorite show growing up for sure.
That's a good pick. That's a good pick. I
Yeah.
definitely remember watching that as well.
Yeah.
I would say one of my favorite episodes when PJ goes to New York. That's the one I remember the most. I
Yeah,
don't know
I
if you
remember
remember that
that.
one
I
at all.
do.
Yeah. Mine's a very similar answer to yours. I would say Sweet Life on Deck. That was a really fun show to
Yeah.
watch. They always had it on TV, so I remember watching that every once in a while. Either that or like SpongeBob, I would say, is
Yeah.
the two I remember watching the most outside of like sports and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Those are good answers too.
Now, you obviously have the best off the field style on the Colgate women's lacrosse team, but besides yourself, who would you say has the best style on the team?
I would say Josie Cavallo and Grace Del Negro are kind of tied, and lucky for both of them, they're roommates, so they get to share each other's closet, which I think ups both of their scores a little bit. But yeah, they have great style.
You got to visit their room at some point to try to
I
improve your
know.
style, maybe as well.
I do. I do sometimes. I need to take advantage of it more.
Now, what's been the most interesting thing you've read or seen recently?
Um, I guess my social media has kind of been infiltrated with a lot of the P. Diddy drama as it unfolds, so it's kind of interesting. A lot of stuff going on there, but yeah,
What's that drama? I'm not aware of it myself.
I think think he's going to jail. I think he got arrested.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Yeah, I misheard
Yeah,
that. Yeah, no,
no,
definitely.
so
Yeah,
that's
that's
kind of,
definitely interesting. We'll see if anyone else is involved with that as well. That's sort of the
I
next
know,
step.
I know. Ugh.
I would say for me, there's been a lot of sad news going around today, or just recently as well. But I would say probably just the whole Jeremy Swayman Bruins contract negotiations. I just find that very fascinating, and it'll be interesting to see if he actually plays this year with the team or not. So I feel
Yeah,
like I haven't seen a contract negotiation this tenuous in quite some time. So I find that pretty interesting, especially since I'm interested in business and sports as well. So it's a cool sort of my two interests meshing into one.
that's a great one. That's super cool. I've been seeing some of that too.
Now, last non-lacrosse question is, what is one thing outside of lacrosse that you're deeply passionate about?
I think we kind of touched on it a little bit, but I would say skiing and snowboarding. I love to do, and I think definitely had to take a little step back throughout these last 4 years. Just don't want any injuries, knock on wood. But I'm super excited to go back to it after graduating from college lacrosse. But yeah, I'd say
That's
that.
awesome. That's awesome. Do they not let you do it? Because I know when you sign a contract in sports, they won't let you do certain activities. Is the same thing for college where the coaches tell you you can't do certain things to help prevent injury?
I think it's more of a like me thing. I think I just don't want to risk anything.
Yeah.
I haven't been explicitly told. I think there's kind of the inferred rule that don't do something that could hurt you. So
Mhm.
that's more of just me taking precaution.
That's good. That's good. I would
Mhm.
say for me, sort of similar to you, sort of hockey or baseball. I love watching both those sports and definitely like talking about it and writing about it as well. So those would be my interest outside of lacrosse.
That's awesome.
Well, getting back to some lacrosse questions now, what should be done to help grow women's lacrosse from your perspective?
I think educating people on the game, I think a lot of times it can be intimidating from a non-lacrosse player or watcher to kind of look and be like, oh, what's going on? Like the rules are definitely a tad confusing for someone who isn't familiar. And so I think educating the people about the high level rules and game, I think would help spread, publicity. But I also think social media is a big part in it. And we've seen like women's teams recently start blowing up, whether it's the U.S. soccer team or the WNBA. Like, they're getting a lot of publicity now, and lacrosse very well could be next. And I think just growing the game online and spreading the video, the cool highlights, the rule changes, and just kind of all the little things that could grab people's attention.
Well, do you have any shout outs to any of your teammates, family members, and friends? And who should we have on the podcast next?
I mean, I'd love to shout out my team and coaches and then friends and family, but I think as far as podcast next, Nell Niffen and Kate Henning are teammates of mine who I think would be great guests as well.
Well, Lucy, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate your time. I think you're a great player and even better person. And I just want to let you know that. And obviously, I'm wishing you and your team all the best for next season. It's going to be fun to watch.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great talking with you.